Academy, which gets more than 6 million students in the United States to learn the principles of subjects like mathematics by watching lessons online, leaving teachers free to offer one-to-one help and guidance. We'll speak to the man behind the project that's getting the attention of our own Education Secretary Michael Gove in a moment. First, David Grossman explains how the Khan Academy works.
The basic look at the classroom hasn't changed too much over time. We still do education in a very traditional way.
They have lessons where they sit in rows and they have exams at the end of the year and at the end of each stage, and then they leave. It's a pretty industrial process designed for a 19th century style economy.
The traditional model for education works like this. You have a classroom with pupils and a teacher who imparts information. The pupils then take that information home and put it to the test with attempting exercises as homework. But what if we've got that round the wrong way? What if we could use the power of technology to liberate the pupils and the teacher from this one-size-fits-all approach? That's the idea behind the Khan Academy, set up by Salman Khan, a former hedge fund manager turned educational entrepreneur. Our own Education Secretary, Michael Gove, told us he thinks Mr. Khan is a visionary and truly great man. He also has the support and now money of Bill Gates behind him, who discovered Sal Khan's videos whilst trying to help his own children.
There's a new website that I've just been using with my kids recently called Khan Academy, K-H-A-N. Just one guy doing some unbelievable 15-minute tutorials.
The way it works is this. The pupil would watch video lessons at home, and then, if they don't understand something, they could simply rewind and have another look. Rewind and have another look without holding the rest of the class back. And those who get it first time, well, they can crack on at their own pace. And then, at school, the pupils will do what they used to do as homework, but this time with the support of the teacher or indeed another classmate to help them. The Khan Academy says this system is already working in 20,000 classrooms across the world.
These teachers have used technology to humanize the classroom. They took a fundamentally dehumanizing experience, a bunch of 30 kids with their fingers on their lips, not allowed to interact with each other. A teacher, no matter how good, has to give this kind of one-size-fits-all lecture to 30 students, blank faces, slightly antagonistic, and now it's a human experience. Now they're actually interacting with each other.
I think we're just beginning to see in education the beginning of the biggest revolution since the printing press. There's no doubt that digital learning, epitomized by the Khan Academy and various other online providers, will transform education totally and utterly within the next 10 or 20 years in schools, as is already happening in higher education.
And here's what one of those Khan Academy videos looks like. Don't worry, there won't be a test later.
So if you know the number of protons in an element, you know what that element is.
This system isn't simply about replacing lessons with videos. It's also about making sure that each pupil understands each topic before they move on to the next. Under the traditional model, the class has to keep moving. They have to keep making progress, meaning some pupils can get left behind with huge gaps in their understanding.
Imagine learning to ride a bicycle. And I give you a bicycle, maybe I give you a lecture ahead of time, and I give you that bicycle for 2 weeks, and then I come back after 2 weeks, and I say, well, let's see, you're having trouble taking left turns, you can't quite stop. You're an 80% bicyclist. So I put a big C stamp on your forehead, and then I say, here's a unicycle. But as ridiculous as that sounds, that's exactly what's happening in our classrooms right now.
The final piece of the Khan model is big data. The pupil, the teacher and the parent can all get real-time, highly granular data about progress and gaps in knowledge. Its supporters say it means no longer will poor teaching or disruptive classmates be a bar to getting an education. And that goes for kids in California or Calcutta or Clacton.
David Grossman. Well, Salman Khan joins us now from California. Mr. Khan, how do teachers react to this? Do they feel a bit threatened that you're trying to do them out of a job?
Well, it depends how they perceive us. I think sometimes if you read a newspaper report and people read about this online virtual education stuff, I think there is a knee-jerk reaction that, oh, is this going to be Amazon.com somehow trying to replace Barnes & Noble's, the virtual, trying to be a more efficient version of the physical. But what we're very strong about, and as your report just highlighted, is we're the exact opposite. We're in no way about trying to replace a physical experience. We're actually about trying to empower a physical experience, actually to leverage the human beings in the room. So the teachers that we've worked with that understand that, and we've been working, as y'all mentioned, with tens of thousands of classrooms, very closely with many out here in the States, actually around the world, they feel more energized. They feel like this is what they got into the profession for. They feel like they finally have time to connect with students. They finally have time to break out of that factory model of do this on day one, then this on day two. They can adapt to their strengths and to the strengths of the students. So I think the more people understand.
Well, I just wondered whether you would concede, though, that one of the biggest problems in education is children become demotivated. They think, oh, maths is hard, I can't do it, and then they go C, D, E, and they go down rather than go up. It's turning them off. How could this help them?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. That is a major issue. And one thing I always point out, in an algebra class, you do always have a student saying, hey, why do I need to learn this? And they're getting demotivated. But you don't see that in art class. You don't see that in philosophy class. You don't see in PE class. You don't have a 5'9" Indian kid saying, hey, when am I going to have to put an orange ball through a 10-foot hoop? And the reason why you don't see that in those other classes is because the students are fundamentally engaged, while in math class, they're feeling that their self-esteem is constantly being bombarded. And the reason why they feel that way is that they get through, say, arithmetic, only understanding 80% of it, 90% of it. Then they're pushed into pre-algebra, and the pre-algebra is that much harder because they haven't mastered arithmetic, and then they barely understand that. Then they get pushed ahead to algebra. By the time they get to algebra or calculus, they're barely understanding anything at all. And so what we're seeing in a lot of classrooms, if you allow students of all skill levels to fill in their gaps, to make sure they master concepts, and before there's no chance to do that. You're in an algebra class, you didn't know how to multiply decimals, you're afraid to raise your hand and say, oh, teacher, I forgot some of my 6th grade math or my 5th grade math. Now you can do it. Now you have your friends there to help you. You have the teacher there to help you. The teacher has tools to identify those gaps, and then they can build that up. And we're seeing, whether you talk about affluent neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, charter schools, independent schools, that if you allow those same students that you thought were demotivated to fill in those gaps, they can become accelerated.
Well, I was just going to pick up that point. I mean, the rich, poor, also we've got problems with some kind of malnourished, sometimes malnourished kids who go to school hungry, or we have ones with troubled backgrounds. I mean, does this not appeal more to those whose families can afford to give them a laptop so they can look at this stuff?
Yeah, well, I think that is a major issue right now, that we are dependent on some type of accessibility, and even in the developed world, you have about 75% internet penetration, access to computation devices. We hope that over the next 5-10 years, the costs are getting dramatically cheaper every day. That will get solved. We are right now, because it tends to be educated families that have access, that know about us, we are being disproportionately used there. But what we're finding is if you can give students in after-school programs in the inner city access to this type of thing, it's at least as powerful for them, if not more powerful for them, as say, Bill Gates' children.
Okay, Salman Khan, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much. Now, let's